welcome to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. This is a podcast dedicated to educating and empowering women from preconception, pregnancy, birth, and through early motherhood on wellness lifestyle. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and I'm a maternity pediatric chiropractor as well as a mother who has hand-selected experts in natural holistic healthcare specialties to shine light on options and choices during this exciting phase of a woman's life. And today I had the pleasure of interviewing Laurie Lewis, and we focused on the topic of how to increase your life satisfaction by ditching dieting. For intermittent fasting coach and author Laurie Lewis, menopause dealt a crushing blow. Brain fog, lack of balance, memory loss, and the sudden gain of 50 pounds of stubborn hormonal fat. She tried everything she knew to feel better, and the methods that worked in the past made no difference. After 4 years of struggle, Laurie stumbled upon intermittent fasting and started fasting that very same day. The menopausal fog lifted in less than 1 week. She had more energy and felt like herself. She lost 51 pounds in 15 months and has kept it off for years. Now at 59, Laurie has turned her personal success into the premier thriving intermittent fasting coaching business. As a certified health coach from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, she combines her knowledge of nutrition with deep research and practice of time-restricted eating. Laurie guides her clients with a dream come true. Eat the foods you love and enjoy the rest of your life feeling vibrantly well. For more information, you can find her at fastforwardwellness.com. Hi, Laurie. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you on today.
Hi, Laura. It's really great to be here. Thank you.
So we're going to talk about a topic that I haven't really delved deep into on Well-Adjusted Mama, and I'm so excited to bring in your wisdom and expertise for today's show. We're going to talk about really how to ditch dieting and how that directly impacts our life satisfaction and what that means. Really, it goes back to that self-love and positive body image and how we treat ourselves as women and how culturally we haven't been necessarily conditioned to value our health and our bodies and how we look. And the judgment, the self-judgment that occurs. So I think that's kind of sums up a little bit of what we're going to cover today. So Laurie, just let's share with the audience a little bit about your story and how you became so passionate about nutrition and essentially intermittent fasting or eating window, as you like to call it.
Yeah, I love to call it eating in an eating window because that just seems more accessible and interesting. And it seems like something that's sustainable as opposed to a short-term quick fix. But I'm really happy to be talking to you and thank you for having me on. I look way back to my late 20s when one day I had the thought, I think this Diet Coke isn't good for me. And that was a turning point. I suddenly got very interested in fueling myself well. And so one of the things that I did, in hindsight, I think, wow, that sure was clever of me. I decided to categorize a whole bunch of things that most people think are normal food, that are ultra processed food. And I categorized it for myself as not food, like with a hyphen, not food. And so I didn't demonize it. I wasn't critical of myself or others. I just felt like there's food and then there's not food. And of course, I'm not going to eat the not food. And I decided right then, like, oh, I could be a person who just doesn't, I go to a restaurant and other people order a Diet Coke and I have water. Like I just shifted. And then I really dove into a personal passion for understanding how to fuel my body well, with the focus and the context being how to feel really great. Of course, I wanted to look good and look cute in my clothes and, have my clothes fit a particular way and be strong and lean and sexy. And I prioritized feeling well. And so then for 20 years, I practiced that. And when I hit what we call perimenopause, which is the transition phase from from premenopausal to postmenopausal. It's usually about 4 to 14 years for a woman. It can start in the late 30s. But there I was, 44, and I started experiencing most actually, if you go down a checklist, they don't send us to biology class for older women, but I started piecing together like, what is wrong with me? And figuring out, oh, I'm in perimenopause. So I struggled through all of that and I couldn't wait for it to be over. And then when my period stopped at 49, which is early, the average is 52, I suddenly gained 50 pounds. So this hormonal chaos, and it had nothing to do with what I was eating because I'd been practicing foundational, nutritious, delicious variety of food that fueled my body well. I figured out what worked well for me. I didn't change my food at all. And I was feeling well. Then I was feeling awful. Then I gained 50 pounds. And the way that I restored my health to, the brain fog went away, the mental clarity was restored, all my aches and pains went away, and the 50 pounds went away when I started intermittent fasting. So eating in an eating window. And people were coming to me saying, wow, you're the healthiest person we know. How could this happen to you? And I'm like, I know. And so I started sharing with people this practice of figuring out how can you customize your own eating window to optimize feeling well. And then if a person is focusing on feeling well as your top priority, and what habits could I put in place to feel better and better and better, then naturally the body, you're consciously, deliberately putting the body into a healing state when you're fasting. And naturally, the hormones balance, inflammation goes down, immunity goes up, and the weight will fall off. But what I've learned over these many years of practicing this, 6 years now, and coaching people for 5, is that we want to prioritize feeling amazing.
Right. That is so important because it's the mind-body connection, right? It's such an awareness that we will emotionally feel really good when our body is feeling physically good.
Yes. And I have also, observed, sure this will ring true for you and your listeners, that we treat health, taking good care of ourselves as an extra thing to do. And so when life's at us, which is unpredictable and overwhelming and, parenting and work and, all of it, I just, have a flood in my basement right now. Like life happens, right?
It happens.
It sure does. And what could be possible? I just want to give people a glimmer of what could be possible when we naturally take really good care of ourselves, no matter what is happening to us in life. It's not an extra thing to do. Right. And one of the things that's so appealing about having an eating window is it starts to occur as a freedom, like there's more space, there's less cognitive and emotional noise. It gets quieter. There's more time. There's more money, believe it or not. Like I like to talk about this as like a free healthcare system. You just fast, clean a good chunk of every day and eat later in an eating window, food that fuels your body well. And with the fasting schedule and the eating window as your healthcare foundation, life gets a lot easier and quieter. It's not one extra thing to do. It's actually less to do.
That is a really good point because everyone is like, oh, I don't want to add another thing to my to-do list. I think women in general, moms are feeling spread very thin and overwhelmed. Yes. And so what you're saying, this is a lifestyle habit that is your routine and it's not an additional thing to do. We all eat. We have to eat to live, right? That is non-negotiable.
For sure.
So we can do it smartly is what you're saying. So talk to me about what an eating window looks like.
So each person, so if you're out there and you're like, oh, this is what I hear a lot, Laura, people will say, oh, I tried intermittent fasting. I never felt better. I'm like, okay, what happened? And they're like, oh, I went on vacation, or, oh, I was caring for an elderly parent, or, oh, I lost my, anything, something in life happened, whether it was good or bad, and they got derailed, and they'll say, I never got back to it. Okay. So if you've tried it or and it felt well, or you've tried it and you're like, it didn't work for me, or you haven't tried it yet, here's what I invite people to do. So I like to start at the end of the day. So look at your day and look at when you and your family, or you alone, when do you like to eat your last meal? And what time would you like to close your eating window? And then people are like, well, what's the best time? No. You get to say. So you in your life, Laura, when you look at your day today and what you have going on and when you like to have dinner and maybe you have an event or maybe at home, what time sounds good to close your eating window today?
I would say, yeah, during the week might be different than the weekend, but I would
Sure.
say average is probably 8 p.m.
Great. Okay. So some people would be 4, some people would be 8, some people are like, depending on their work schedule, they're like midnight, so each person decides. Right. So set an alarm. So you remember, because a new habit, you want to set the structures up to support yourself and being successful with that. And you might do an alarm at 7:45 that says last call, eating windows closing. Remember, you're wiping off the counters and closing the fridge and turning the lights out, and kitchen closed, eating window closed. So then what you do is, after your eating window is closed, you drink plain water. If you want to drink anything at all, plain water, nothing in it, no flavors. Then you go to bed. You might be like, what am I supposed to do with myself? I'm not eating anything late at night. So then you go to bed, sleep well, wake up tomorrow. And on your first day, I'm going to have you just add 12 hours. So 8 p.m., your eating window closed. You drink plain water, wake up, drink plain water, maybe have a black coffee. I can hear the screams from people like, what? And then at 8 a.m. for you, add 12 hours, you can open your eating window.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have whatever you normally like in your tea or coffee in the morning, or whatever you'd like to have for breakfast. Now, some people, that 12 hours is a stretch. It's hard to get to 12 hours for some people. Other people are like, 12 hours? That's like normal for me,
That is normal for me.
Yep. Okay. So then you want to stretch it a little bit. You want to be like, well, I'm not even hungry at 8. I don't need to eat anything. I don't mind black coffee. Or even if you hate black coffee, I'll just suck it back and wake up and switch to water, and then see how far you can go. And when you open your eating window at whatever time it is, eat normally. People are like, what's eat normally? Well, what do you normally eat? And so this isn't a diet. All we're doing right now is focusing on one habit shift at a time, which is have an eating window. Okay. So then what you'll do is gradually, depending on what a person's goals are. So that could look like, if you have a considerable amount of fat to lose, or you're pre-diabetic, or you have, a thyroid issue, or inflammation, like whatever health issues a person is dealing with, and whatever weight challenges, having an eating window will help with that. It lowers inflammation, it balances our hormones, it boosts immunity. Like, it's a win-win all around. So having a clean fasting, and I can talk about what that is. I kind of mentioned it a little. Clean fasting hours and an eating window. I really recommend within the first 2 weeks, a person inch up to having an 8-hour eating window. So that would be a 16-hour clean fast. You're asleep for 7 or 8 of it, and an 8-hour eating window. And you could have a meal, a snack and a meal. You could have 2 big meals and rest, pause in between. But play around with what an 8-hour eating window feels like. And then the next question people ask is, but could I lose weight with that? It's like, well, let's look at all your health issues and your work, your family, and if you're like, what, here's what happened to me. On my first day, I decided to just aim for noon. I was like, I don't need to eat anything in the morning. I feel fine with water and black coffee. And so I aimed for noon, which I did. And so for a little while, I had an 8-hour eating window. And then I thought, well, that kind of feels kind of long for me. So I squished it to a 6-hour eating window.
Oh.
That felt great. And so for me, here I was in menopause. I was 54 years old when I started. I'm 60 now. I'm 60 and at my ideal weight on no medication and feel amazing. So I'm getting better and better and better. My biological age is 40. So I'm 60 and my age of my body is like a 40-year-old because
Yes.
of intermittent fasting. So I just encourage people to go gently, go gradually. This is not the fasting Olympics. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone else. You want to tune in to what feels good to you. And that's how you start.
That makes a lot of sense. So two things came up for me as you were speaking. Number one, let's assume that the woman listening is not eating an optimal, healthy food diet. She's eating non-foods.
Not food. Exactly. Not food.
And so I guess, and she's like not feeling well. She feels toxic essentially, and she's carrying some extra weight and inflammation and all the things. And is like, I know I'm not at my healthiest, energetically clear mind, all the things. What's more important, the type of food she's eating or getting the not foods out, or the eating window?
Here is the coolest thing about starting with an eating window and prioritizing fasting first. So fasting as your foundation. When you fast clean and consolidate your eating into an eating window, whether that's a 2-hour eating window or an 8-hour eating window or a 12-hour, if someone doesn't have weight to lose and they're at optimum fitness, they could have a 12-hour eating window and that would increase their lifespan. But what will happen is usually after the first month of keeping an eating window, really focusing on an 8-hour. Maybe you're like, I feel better with it a little shorter. Okay, great. Go for that. What will happen is the apostat, the appetite center in our brain, the hunger and satiety hormones will start doing their job correctly. And people experience what Dr. Bert Herring coined the phrase appetite correction. When we're fasting every day, we develop this incredible communion with our body, a reverence, kind of a clear discernment. And we start to, I know it sounds impossible if you've never done it before. It's like people, when they call me, they're like, it happened. I didn't believe you, but then it happened. The body will start thinking about particular foods / nutrients that it wants. So
Yes.
it doesn't come to your brain like, you need more omega-3s and vitamin B. It comes to you in terms of salmon and Brussels sprouts, and you can't shake it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the other aspect of appetite correction is not only the quality of food that your body desires and is asking for improves. The other facet of appetite correction is the quantity. So people are like, how much do I know to eat? Am I supposed to count calories? It's like, no. Your body will start informing you. And what it says is, I've had enough. And it's quiet. We start hearing this still small voice, this gentle communication. See, when it's, when our body is addicted to ultra processed food and refined sugars and so forth, it kind of screams at us. And when we're fasting clean and eating in an eating window and appetite correction kicks in and the body starts steering us towards higher quality food, nutritious foods, and telling us when we could stop eating now, it's quiet. And I think most people, especially women in our culture, welcome the quiet. It's an inner quiet. And that communion, that reverence, that partnership, that there's you, your consciousness, and then there's your body. And as we establish a clean fasting regimen and you establish your fasting sweet spot, like your groove, what feels really well for your body, with feeling well as a priority, and then your goals, whether it's to lower your A1C or reduce your body fat or balance your thyroid hormones, whatever your goals are, you can focus on those, but with feeling well and taking good care of yourself as a priority. So I say fasting first. There are a lot of coaches and doctors who say get the food in order first and then start fasting. And I think that the opposite is so much easier. Food is so emotional and complicated.
It is.
Eating healthy. And when your own body is actually in the driver's seat, steering you and informing you and communicating with you in this quiet, gentle, peaceful way, it's much easier to start. with fasting.
It's such an interesting point you're making because there's two things here. We don't want to if you're starting and changing the way you eat and when you eat, two different things at the same time, it could create an overwhelm, and then people
Yes.
get derailed, give up, walk away. It didn't work for me, or it was too hard, or all the things. And then they don't get results. They still feel like crap, and they're still hanging on to the extra weight and all the stuff that they're looking to shift. And then there's a hopelessness that comes from that, right? So it is an awareness that when we change any type of habit in our life and create new habits, we have to be gentle with ourselves and go slow to go fast. We make these small little steps, and then we can start racing, right? So that's important.
Yes.
And the other thing that you mentioned is the addictive, emotional addictive quality. And then there's a physical addiction that comes from eating not foods that the marketing companies do not want you to know about. But all of the chemicals in these not foods create a real physical addiction. And it's like any other addiction to other types of substances. It's a real thing. So it's not just I want to lose 20 pounds and I'm a slob for continuing to eat junk food, right? Like there's a real addictive quality. And we even see it with our children now that they're just craving these not foods, which is out of alignment with our nature because there is no nutrient value to these not foods. And therefore they have no value to putting in our body besides just that filling that addictive quality. And then the emotional like suppression, right? Of like, I don't feel good about myself, so I'm going to eat something to help me, quote unquote, feel better, right? So these are real things that we're dealing with when we're changing how we eat. And what I just learned from you is that following an eating window for approximately 4 weeks will actually help you get back into tune with what nutrients your body is actually needing at that moment and the body's intelligence of what foods have those nutrients that you're then craving real, healthy, nutritious food instead of the not food.
That's right. And the timing seems to be the first 4 weeks, you're starting with 12-12 and you're increasing and you're aiming for a 16-hour fast and an 8-hour eating window. And you kind of settle in there for a little bit. And then usually around weeks 3 or 4, depending on how long you're fasting each day, you become what we call metabolically flexible, that the fat that we're carrying around is fuel. It's just our body isn't trained to tap into it because it wants to tap into the sugar in our blood and the stored glycogen in our liver first, and we never give it a chance to get to the fat. So usually at about 3 to 4 weeks in, you become metabolically flexible. And that's another reason people are like, well, can I do it and not do it? It's like, why would you stop and start? Get through the adjustment period. Get to be a person whose body naturally every day shifts into a fat burning state, which gives you a nice, bright, even energy. You improve your relationship with food. The cravings, kind of this street brawl with the cravings and the hormones subsides. And you're then in the next 4 weeks. So the first 4 weeks are the adjustment period. Your body's like, woo, okay, we're doing this. And then in the next 4 weeks is when I think you really discover what your eating window sweet spot is. When is the best time? And it can change, but I think in the beginning, it's helpful when a person creates new habits to try and keep it pretty consistent for those first 8 weeks. And then at the end of 8 weeks, a person, I can ask anyone, if I were to say to you, what's your eating window sweet spot? And could you keep that going forever? What feels really, really good to you? People would say, 1 to 7 or 11 to 4 or, 4 to 10. People will say what that feels really, really good to them and that they could sustain long into the future. And they even start to see, I could keep that going on a vacation. I could just move it around or expand it a little bit, or an event is happening. I just open it a little earlier. But every day, a person has an eating window, much like sleep. You wouldn't say, I think I'm not going to do it today. No, you might have less sleep today, but you're going to do it. So the same with having an eating window. Just have it be something you do every day, and you just get to decide when it is. And you get to decide when it is, not only based on what you have going on today, but what has your body feel amazing. That's the top goal.
Yeah, that's so important. So what about somebody who knows that they're like hypoglycemic and tend to have low blood sugar, and they get really, hangry if they haven't eaten in a while? Like, how do they do with this eating window? Do they need a longer eating window?
Well, like I said, we want to start gradually. And so many people suspect, or they'll say they're hyperglycemic, but they haven't really been diagnosed as that. So what I have experienced that they're actually saying is they do experience that hangry feeling, and they don't want to get into that state. So This is what happens with the adjustment phase is you start with this 12-12. You see how long you can go. Maybe it's 14 hours, 14 and a half, 15. And if you ever feel awful, you should eat. Now, there are some things that you can do to mitigate that and to feel better pretty quickly most of the time. So that would be suddenly you have strong thoughts of food. Okay, you can handle that mental noise. You just stay busy, do something else. You just say to yourself, you calm that nervous system by saying to yourself, okay, it's 10:30. I'm going to eat at noon, and this is the yummy food I'm going to eat. And for your brain and your body to know there's no famine, food is coming later, and this is the yummy food I'm going to be eating later, and I'm just going to occupy myself in this way for the next hour and a half, you're fine 99.9% of the time. Okay. So you pause, you get present to the noise, you remind yourself when you're eating and what you're eating, and you carry on. Now, sometimes people will start experiencing a low-grade headache. You want to make sure you've had enough minerals, electrolytes. So you take a magnesium capsule or put a little high-quality salt under your tongue. That hit of sodium and that hit of magnesium sometimes can snap someone right out of that. Have a glass of water, stay busy, recognize that it's a hunger wave. Hunger doesn't, for the most part, build and build and build. It's a thoughts of food, some alerts, your stomach growling. Hunger's not an emergency. You remind yourself when you're eating later and what you're eating.
And you might be dehydrated too. So even you may need 2 glasses of water.
Yes. And when insulin is low, which we want, it's one of the primary key top benefits of intermittent fasting. When insulin is low, insulin's not only regulating our blood sugar, but it's a fat storage hormone. So we want it to be low. The kidneys tend to dump magnesium and sodium. So getting those minerals in is important. And it may not be a blood sugar issue. It may be minerals. So you drink water, you remind yourself of when you're eating later, you breathe a little bit, you stay busy. If you, in fact, are informed by your body that you must eat now, you really should. This is not a failure. This is an example of you tuning in, taking some steps to feel better and stay in a fasted state if you want to. And when your body says, nope, not now, time to eat, you should. You didn't screw anything up. Yay, you listened to what your body needed. And then you eat. You eat a meal to satiety. We are not a grazing animal. We are not designed to eat a little bit of this, a little bit of that. If anybody ever stopped and focused on that, you would realize that that's inherently not satisfying. What's satisfying is sitting, taking a little break. Everybody needs one. Having a variety of nutrients. It can be a small amount or a large amount. Variety of nutrients. Eat that to satiety, which means, am I satisfied? Is hunger gone? Can I kind of lean back in my seat and sigh a little bit? That means you've had enough to eat. Carry on with the rest of your day, and and eat whatever the next meal is later, and then close your eating window, repeat. And for myself, within 3 days of having that 8-hour eating window, I remember standing in my mom's kitchen in Colorado, and I was like, oh, there I am. I suddenly felt clearer, brighter, more grounded, alert, like myself, more like myself than I had in over 5 years. in 3
Wow.
days. And then the 51 pounds actually came off in about 15 months, which is a slow, methodical. So if anyone is looking for some quick fix,
Yeah.
let me tell you, a trendy thing, this is not it. This is a healthcare regimen with a side effect of weight loss that a person can rest in confidence knowing that they're going to sleep better, they're healing their liver, their gut, they're making new brain cells, that this is a way to look forward into the rest of your life as well as today feeling better. And Dr. David Sinclair from Harvard, he's a longevity expert. He wrote a great book called Lifespan. He says the number one easiest thing that a person can do to live longer and feel better today is to intermittent fast. So I say eat in an eating window.
Yeah. And so it's also like you're avoiding all those empty calories, the mindless eating that I do think is quite common. And,
Yes.
And we know that that also is impacting, longevity. So in general, you know, even though you're not saying that we're eating less calories, I think that is part of the side effect of this eating window is you are cutting out some of those calories that you know, the empty calories, the crap that we don't need to be eating anyways, which is linked to dying younger. So let's get rid of it.
Absolutely. And I just love enticing people with this idea of life can get gentler and quieter. And we've been brainwashed into thinking that anything we want to achieve has to be done with force and effort and punishment and really negative reinforcement and motivation. And I don't believe that serves us at this swinging from a pendulum of extremism. Well, if a 6-hour eating window is good, I'm going to have a 1-hour eating window. It's like, well, that might work for someone, but that is for the most part not sustainable. And each person needs to discover for themselves what feels good and what they can keep doing. And so, you know, I spoke with someone yesterday who was like, I tried that, you know, my brother-in-law had a 2-hour eating window. So I tried that. And, you know, I'm just like, a 2-hour eating window might work for one person, and that's torture for another. So you don't have to do what someone else is doing. This is very personalized, customized, gentle, introspective. You know, I think that I was going to say self-care. The term self-care has morphed in the last few years into like taking a self-care day, like going getting a mani-pedi and you know, sitting in a hot tub. It's like, to me, self-care is what do you do every day, literally every moment. I mean, I ask myself the question, what can I do to take really good care of myself right now? Yeah. It's the right now. It's not later, tomorrow, Monday, after vacation.
Out. Yeah.
Right. So, I'm going to have a self-care day over the weekend. No. What am I doing right? And when I say right now, I'll have a glass of water. I'll stand up and swing my arms around. Might pick up those weights and lift them 5 times, you know, or call a friend or take a walk or plan my dinner. So, or snuggle with a puppy. So what can I do to take really good care of myself right now? Not like it's some extra thing that you have to carve in time for. That having an eating window, we're all going to eat. You said we got to eat, right?
We got to eat.
And you know, about what you said about the calorie reduction, there have been studies that have shown that they'll take 2 groups and they'll feed them both the same amount of food. So same amount of calories. Let's say 2 test groups, they each get 1,200 calories. One group can eat it whenever they want, kind of throughout the day. They're like, I have to spread this little 1,200 calories throughout the whole day. The other group has an eating window, consolidated time. Here's what they've discovered. So same amount of calories. Mm-hmm. The group that spreads it out throughout the day is miserable because you're having all these little tiny bites of food and never experiencing being satisfied. Mm. The group that eats in the eating window, they're metabolically flexible. They're shifting into fat burning. They feel this nice sustained energy. They've lost the cravings disappear, and they're eating later in an eating window. And then they get their 1,200 calories kind of in one meal or 2 meals. So they're happier. And the result is that they're burning more fat and losing more weight. So same amount of food, But one of the reasons that I don't recommend calorie counting is it's kind of sad to think that we're in a culture where we look at a plate of food and do math, where we
Right.
could look at a plate of food and just look at those colors and how yummy this is. And I've been really looking forward to eating it. And when we are daily clean fasters, plain unflavored water, plain unflavored black coffee, plain unflavored black or green tea, minerals, like I said, a plain magnesium capsule or salt under your tongue, and your medications as prescribed. That's the clean fast. And when we're fasting clean and eating later in an eating window, we really are tuned into eating more nutritious food and being satisfied with that food. And one time I did a test on myself. I was like, how many calories am I actually eating? Like I'm kind of curious. And so I downloaded one of the apps, and for 2 weeks, every day I entered what I ate after the fact. So I tune into my body. I ask myself, how much hunger do I feel today? Some days more, some days less. And then I would eat. I'd make my food, I'd eat, then I'd eat again, close my eating window, and then enter it all in. And some days I'd eat 2,500 calories, and other days I'd eat 800 or 900. Some days I just was not hungry, and other days I was ravenous. And that's
Right.
what fasting allows for, is that keen discernment of what food and how much food does my body want today.
That is so important. Our daily caloric intake does fluctuate. If you have a really intense workout one day, then you're going to need to eat more calories. If you're not moving as much, you need less. If you're, have a cold and you're just kind of like needing to, have a little broth or whatever. Every day is
Yes.
different. So, that's very important. If you're making breast milk, you need to eat more, so like there's
Yes.
a day to day, and there's also a life cycle that occurs as well in a woman's life. If you're pregnant, you're eating more. Obviously, these are like obvious cases, but like the whole point is that everything, it can change, and it changes day to day, week, month, year, and it's important to not be so regimented that you can have some flexibility. So that actually reminds me, I have some women in my practice who have a history of eating disorders.
Yes.
And so to recover, they've had to be fairly regimented in how they eat because of their really the psychological impact in the relationship they had with food in their past. So
Yes.
how do these women relate to an eating window?
So I have found that when it's gentle and when a person is really tuning into, wow, and noticing the mindless eating, the snacking, the grazing, the addiction to ultra processed food, when we can shrink that eating window, people feel so well during their fasting hours. This is not a punishment. People actually feel well and have a nice, bright energy. And then that we can develop this keen respect for our body and how we're nourishing it. So fasting actually provides that. And if a person is really dealing with an eating disorder, I always recommend, if I'm their coach, I recommend that they're working with a therapist who specializes in eating disorders at the same time that we're working together. But any suspicion that having an eating window leads to an eating disorder is almost like, as Dr. Jason Fung says, that's like saying washing your hands leads to OCD. No, that they're not the same at all. And so what I have found in my experience is that people develop a beautiful, healthy relationship with food and relationship with their body, which is really healing. Again,
Yes.
this isn't a contest, and more isn't better. And so is longer fasting, will it provide health benefits? Yes, but that doesn't mean it's right for you, or that it's sustainable, or that it's going to have you feel well or work with your family or work for you emotionally. So again, gentle is important. And another question I ask myself is, if I'm not, sometimes hunger feelings, it's kind of like an alert system. Sometimes hunger feelings arise when we experience sudden stress, okay, where they're sleep deprived, crazy hunger, or something happens, somebody hurt our feelings, or a stressful situation, hunger can arise.
Yeah.
And I'll ask myself, am I going to be my best right now and in the next few hours if I stay in a fasted state or if I eat, fed or fasted? How am I going to be and perform my best? How am I going to feel my best if I stay fed or stay fasted or fed? And then I listen. And mostly my body says, no, we're good. That was just a moment of stress. You can handle it. Go about your day, eat later. This is when I'm eating later. Mostly. Sometimes the body's like, you know what? It'd be a good idea to eat right now. I'm like, great, cool. All right, I'm eating now. So it's again that respect, that tuning in, that reverence, that communion and communication with your body, and learning the difference between real hunger and just hunger alerts.
Right.
Imagine our ancestors. We have gone throughout all human history without food and then food and without food and food. And so when a stomach growls or a thought of food arises, that is an alert system. Imagine our ancestors. We haven't changed evolutionarily in the last 100 years, right? So that alert system was a reminder for our ancestors to go out and find food, which could take 6 hours or 6 days. So the hunger wave will pass and the human body is at its best, alert, bright, sharp, strong, good stamina when we're in a fasted state. That's why a lot of professional and competitive athletes are now training in a fasted state, even some performing in a fasted state because they feel so clear and strong when they're burning their own body fat for energy.
Wow. So guess what just popped into my head?
Ooh, what?
Labor. When a woman is laboring, and some laboring women do want, a little food, but I know from my personal experience, I didn't want any food during my 8-hour marathon labor, right? Where I was working very hard to birth a baby. I wanted to drink water and stay hydrated. And that was it. It was just water out of a straw. And I remember very vividly my husband, because I had a home birth, he was sitting on the couch, chomping away on a fruit salad I picked up at Whole Foods the day before. And it was definitely within 30 minutes of me birthing a baby. And he's like, you want some fruit salad? And it was like the last thing on my mind. I don't think he knew how close. I mean, he just didn't know, right? But it was very funny.
Hilarious.
I was like, no. I don't want any
a family joke. Want some fruit salad?
Yeah, I want some fruit. And I mean, my eyes were closed. I'm in the birthing tub and I hear, as he's chomping away. And I'm like, I'm glad he's enjoying that fruit salad. But it was like nothing I wanted anything to do with. And then after I delivered the baby and delivered the placenta, I was resting in bed. I was ready to eat. And doula whipped up a healthy breakfast. It was like, 10:30 in the morning and eggs, protein rich. And I was ready to eat. I mean, but definitely about 30 minutes after my baby was born. So, this is, yeah. And I would say that's actually a very natural process of what my body needed. It was, and I, started laboring in the middle of the night. So I hadn't eaten for several hours when my labor started. And at that point, it was not the right time to eat. And then, but once I had, gotten through the intensity and was on the other side, I was ready to eat. So that reminds me of any like high endurance type of activity that there, fasting, I can now see why there would be some value to that. And now I'm thinking about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. When you're working hard, like labor, there's a sympathetic component to that, right? Or like if you're running a race or any other type of really high physical activity, that is not the time for rest and digest. And so therefore our digestive tract is not getting all the blood flow that it needs to do its job optimally. When you're doing some high intensity exercise or activity. So that goes back to the blood needs to go to the extremities and do its thing.
Well, people ask, what about working out? And in the beginning, I would recommend, doing gentle exercise, whatever you normally do, dial it back a little bit because your body is going through this adjustment phase of learning to tap into the different fuel sources, the sugar in your blood and the stored sugar, the glycogen in your liver and in your muscles. And then once that tank is drained, usually after about 2, 3, 4 weeks, then the body's shifting into fat burning. People are like, but I need my BCAAs and so forth before I work out. It's like, really think about that for a second. Human beings' bodies have always had sufficient fuel on board to fuel a long run, a long walk, whatever physical activity we need to endure, to hunt, to, do all the labor that human beings are designed to do, has always been in a fasted state. And so why suddenly do we think that we need this special fancy drink before we work out? We don't. It's all made up by the food industry. You are fueling well on your own body fat for energy while you're working out. And so in the beginning, take it easy. Make sure you have enough magnesium, low sodium, as I said, under the tongue is the quickest way to get that into your system. And people will discover that. And then, as you said also, Laura, that maybe the next day after a big workout, your body will ask for more food.
Yeah.
And so people are like, oh, I overate. No, you didn't. If you ate past satiety, if you noticed your body saying, I've had enough, and you overrode it, I'm like, I'm mad, I want to eat all that. Okay. Then maybe you overate.
Sure.
But if today you ate more because your body asked for more food today, because you had a big workout yesterday, go for it. Enjoy. The pendulum's going to swing. Tomorrow your body might not be so hungry. So it's a beautiful dance between burning our own body fat for energy and keeping insulin low and healing. And there's another aspect of fasting called autophagy, that when we're in a fasted state and we're burning our own body fat for fuel, this deep cellular cleanup happens where we have all these old junky proteins that are hanging out. That's like a marker of aging. And when we're in a fasted state, this deep cellular cleanup happens. And so that's another reason for fasting clean, is you don't want to disrupt that with any flavors or nutrients. Like, we want to really upregulate the autophagy process, which for me, and I would hope most people, is highly motivated. And you can see the effects on skin, scars diminish, moles disappear. So if a person can see the effects of autophagy on the external part of their body, imagine what's happening to the inflammation in your lungs and just all aspects. Bone density increases when we're fasting.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful regimen to have as your foundation. And a person doesn't need to do this thing called intermittent fasting. I mean, you could keep it private, you could tell people whatever, but it's not a trend. It's not a diet. It is a healing regimen that, yes, could have a person lose the excess fat that they're carrying around, but mostly it has people look better and feel more vivacious. And especially when you figure out your gentle regimen that works well for you, it's a great way to live.
It sounds great. And I do think it's, like you mentioned, this is not just a fad or a short-term thing. It's your living. It's your life, it's your life. It's how you practice every day. And what I'm hearing from you as well is you're creating a faster metabolism, which is also like, instead of putting the fat in our body, it's like we're utilizing the fat that we're storing that we don't necessarily need at that moment. Right. And that's where it can get broken down for sugar and energy.
That's right. And exactly what you just said leads me to, so you can find anything on the internet. I heard, so-and-so say that I can put fat in my coffee, or I can have this much. One of the most highly addictive ultra processed foods I've observed is coffee creamer. It's people are like, you take my coffee creamer away from my cold dead hands. I mean, it's just like the thing that people grip onto the most, and they cannot even envision breaking that habit. So that's an addiction. But when people say, no, having fat in my coffee, heavy cream or MCT oil gives me this beautiful sustained energy all morning until I eat later. And I'm like, wait a sec. I would rather burn the fat on my body than the fat in my coffee cup. Which would you rather burn? It's like, if you're going to burn fat for a nice, sustained, beautiful energy until you eat your meal later, why not it be the fat on your belly than the fat that you're adding to your coffee cup? So yeah, fat gives us a beautiful, nice, bright, sustained energy. And let's make sure we're getting into a fat burning mode every day. Why not?
And what about with kids? I mean, growing,
Mhm.
developing bodies, they need, I guess, like a longer eating window. What does that look like?
No fasting for kids. I mean, that we don't want to even use that languaging. So the language that works for children is shift away from, do you want a snack? If you ask any human being, do you want a snack? Not, they're going to say, yes, of course I want a snack. So the question needs to become, are you hungry? We are not tuned into, are we hungry? So one easy thing is, are you hungry? If a kid's like, I'm not hungry for, why are we forcing anyone to eat when they're not hungry?
Right.
That makes no sense at all. So people need to tune in, all people, whether you're a child or a 19-year-old or a 60-year-old, tune into, am I hungry? And if a kid says, Mom, I'm not hungry for breakfast, then pack them a little something. And here's the thing that you can eat later when you get hungry. And so, I know, I'm kind of an old person, but when I was growing up, I say before the snack generation started,
Right.
We would come home from school and ask for a snack, and our mom would be like, no, you'll spoil your dinner. I think that way of thinking has disappeared, that we
Yes.
want to wait until we're hungry and eat a meal later. That's disappeared. If we could restore that, eating later when we're hungry, saving, not just popping food in our mouth whenever we see something or someone offers. Like, when was the last time someone offered someone food and you said, oh, no, thank you, I'm not hungry right now? No one ever says that. Why not? I'm not hungry right now. That looks amazing. I might pop it in a Ziploc and eat it later when I get hungry. So we want to eat for actual hunger. And people who delay, there are plenty of studies that people who wait for things they want are happier people. Delayed gratification makes for happier people. So
Oh, that's a good
if you
parenting
can
101
wait,
tip.
it is. Let's wait. Why are we getting the thing we want when we want it, in the instant we want it, whenever we want it? It's like, wait, my people. So
Mm.
people, I don't view having an eating window as, like, if you think of a pie chart and all the different ways that you can focus on being a healthy person, meditation and exercise and hydration and sleep, all the ways. I was making this pie chart once, and fasting was one of the pieces of the pie. And I'm like, no, that's not right. So for me, fasting is the crust. Fasting is the underlying thing that holds all those other pieces together. So if you want to improve your strength and your stamina and your speed, be an intermittent faster. You want to have a deeper, clearer meditation or prayer practice, be an intermittent faster. You want to make nutrition choices that work better for your individual body, be an intermittent faster. Have an eating window. You want to sleep better. You want to have better digestion. So for me, fasting is that foundation that holds and lifts all those other things up that you most care about, and you want to be productive and focused at work. You want to be a kind, patient mother. Like, it just makes it all better, which sounds counterintuitive. It sounds like one extra thing to think about and worry about, but it's actually less.
Wow. Well, Laurie, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your passion and wisdom about eating windows. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share?
Oh, I just want people to trust yourself and trust your body, and know that, when I hear people saying they either hate their body or their body's working against them, that my vision for you and all people, but especially women, is that we develop this beautiful awe and wonder and relationship with our body that's one of magnificence and reverence, that we get to live in this house for the next 50 plus years. And how are we going to treat it today? And I'd love for each person to trust themselves and trust their body.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I found today's episode really interesting with Laurie. And even if, a lot of my listeners are not even close to approaching perimenopause, this is good information to understand hormone balance and health and vibrance and really understanding an eating window. And for some people, that's going to be larger than others. But I think the biggest advice to take from here is to really listen to your body and intuit what it needs and give it its nutrients and all of the wonderful fuel it needs in an appropriate eating window, and watch your health thrive when you really pay attention to what you're putting in your mouth and when you do it. So, like Laurie said, if you want more information, go check out our website at fastforwardwellness.com. She has a free download that you can get more information about intermittent fasting to see if it can work for you and how it can help. And hope you enjoy this episode.